Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The howl of the wind echoed through the cavernous depths of the icy cavern, each gust a reminder of the alien planet's unforgiving nature. Bright, swirling snowflakes danced outside the entrance, obscuring the landscape in a thick veil of white. This world, cold and desolate, bore little semblance to Sita's home, a vibrant planet known for its lush forests and advanced technology. Here, survival was no longer guaranteed. It was a daily struggle. Sita huddled in the corner of her makeshift shelter, a crude structure cobbled together from remnants of metal and ice. Her dark skin shimmered with a faint iridescence, catching the dim light within and reflecting her sorrow. Once, she had been part of a powerful race, feared and respected across the galaxies. Now, she was a shadow, an exile, left to fend for herself on this bleak world. The bitter cold gnawed at her bones, each frigid breath a reminder of her isolation. Meanwhile, deep within the storm, a lone figure struggled against the wind. Lokesh, a human explorer with bright blue eyes and a heart full of adventure, had crash-landed on this barren planet while charting unexplored territories. The Emer Delta, they'd called it, a region rumored to hide ancient secrets. As he trudged through the snow, the brilliant white of his suit made him stand out against the darkness of the storm. Each step pulled him deeper into uncertainty and desperation. His navigational systems had failed him, leaving him with nothing but his instincts and the hope of finding shelter if he could brave the tempest. Just as he felt he might stumble into an abyss, he caught sight of a flickering light in the distance. Heart racing, he fought his way toward it, unaware that it belonged to someone who would change his life forever. Upon entering the cave, Lokesh was immediately struck by the warmth that greeted him. The fire flickered in a small pit, casting a warm glow against the cold stone walls. And there she was, Sita, her presence commanding even in her frailty. For a moment, they stared at each other, two worlds colliding in a chance meeting, both of them wary yet intrigued. "What do you want?" Sita's voice was firm, yet beneath it lay an edge of vulnerability. She held onto a shard of metal like a weapon, her posture tense. "I just need a place to wait out the storm," Lokesh replied, holding up his hands in surrender, his breath visible in the cold air. "I mean no harm." Sita narrowed her eyes, assessing him. He was unlike any creature she had encountered before, his features softened by the glow of the fire, the warmth of his gaze. But he was human, and humans had been the source of her suffering. Nevertheless, the storm raged outside, forcing them into this tense alliance. "Fine," she relented, her tone sharp. "But stay away from me. We need to survive, not share stories." As Lokesh settled closer to the fire, sensing the warmth seep into his bones, he didn't realize that this moment would be the start of a journey neither of them could have predicted. The howling wind surged outside the cave, a relentless reminder of the icy world beyond. Lokesh found himself seated by the fire, grateful for the warmth, but acutely aware of Sita's tense posture across from him. The flickering flames illuminated the sharp features of her face, framing her with an ethereal glow that made her both beautiful and formidable. As moments passed, silence enveloped them like a heavy blanket. Sita, still clutching her makeshift weapon, regarded Lokesh with suspicion. The trust between them was as thin as the air outside. "Why are you here?" she finally asked, her voice laced with an edge that demanded an answer. "It's not safe for you. You should leave." "I can't. Not in this storm," Lokesh replied. "I'm just trying to survive, same as you." He leaned slightly forward, an effort to bridge the gap between them. "I'm Lokesh." "Sita," she said tersely, still eyeing him warily. As the blizzard raged on outside, they attempted small talk to fill the void of silence. Lokesh delivered stories from Earth, tales of vibrant cities, soaring skyscrapers, and landscapes where rain fell gently instead of the brutal snow that enveloped them now. He attempted to lighten the mood, sharing the goofy antics of his friends back home, but Sita was unamused. "You think this is a joke," she shot back, her voice rising. "You're merely a stranger in my home. Your stories have no bearing here. You don't understand what it means to be alone, to fight for every breath you take." I don't need your tales to distract from the reality of survival. Her words cut deeper than he expected. Lokesh clenched his fists, struggling to mask the irritation bubbling beneath the surface. I'm not here to distract you. I'm here for safety, like you. Just because you're used to being alone doesn't mean I should be cast out. That's where you are wrong, human, Sita replied, her voice unwavering. I have survived alone for a long time. I trust no one, especially not someone of your kind. An uncomfortable silence settled between them, punctuated only by the crackling of the fire. Lokesh took a moment to catch his breath, realizing he needed to tread carefully. Look, we should be working together. Instead of arguing, we need to focus on staying warm and safe. If we don't, we may not make it through the night. Sita regarded him skeptically, her mind racing. Humans were known for their self-preservation, their willingness to sacrifice others for their own gain. But something about Lokesh's earnestness caught her off guard. Maybe it was the desperation in his eyes, or the way he had come to her defenseless. Why did you come to this planet? Sita finally asked, curiosity laced with uncertainty. It was an exploration mission, he explained. We were supposed to map uncharted territories. I wanted to see the wonders of the universe. He gestured beyond the cave. I didn't expect to find myself fighting against a storm, much less alongside an alien. Sita's posture relaxed slightly. Understanding crept in as their shared situation unfolded before them. You think exploring this planet is a wonder? She challenged, brows lifted in disbelief. This place is a prison, a frozen wasteland where even shadows fear to linger. I didn't know. I followed orders, he admitted, lowering his gaze as shame washed over him. But I can't help but wonder, are there truly wonders left in this desolate place? Or is it just loneliness wrapped in ice? For a moment, Sita felt a flicker of connection. Could they truly understand each other? Despite herself, she noticed how the fire cast warmth over his features, revealing a softness that contrasted his rugged exterior. She could feel the weight of time pressing down on both of them, and for the first time, her defenses wavered. This is not the world I come from, she whispered, almost to herself. Back home, I had family friends. Laughter. Now all I have left is the cold. What happened? Lokesh asked gently, conscious of navigating the delicate line between curiosity and intrusion. Sita inhaled sharply, the memories surging forth of betrayal, of exile. Where I come from, my people are known for their strength and power, but I was deemed unworthy, a rebel against a cause I did not believe in. They cast me out to this wasteland, leaving me to die among the ruins of my past. Regret etched itself on Lokesh's face for her suffering. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly painful. She looked down into the flames, the flickering light reflecting her pain. Pain is a constant companion here, but I've learned to survive as best I can. The air between them hung heavy with unspoken words. They were two broken souls in a vast, unfeeling universe, each holding onto their scars and wounds. As the night dragged on, the tension eased slightly, though a palpable distance remained. Neither ventured too close to the other, yet a yearning began to form in the backdrop of their association, a pull dictated by instinct, one that neither would dare to acknowledge amidst their cold-hearted realities. But as the blizzard continued to rage outside, both Sita and Lokesh began to realize that survival was not solely about facing external dangers. It was also about bridging the chasms between their worlds. As the storm raged outside, the icy winds howling against the cave's mouth became a distant hum compared to the growing tension inside. Hours turned into a heavy silence, interrupted only by the crackling fire, which became a focal point for both Sita and Lokesh. Their guarded hearts now beat to the rhythm of unspoken companionship, raw and fragile. Days passed, tangled in the rhythm of survival. Though neither would admit it, a sense of unity formed amid the bleakness. Sharing the same shelter forged an unintentional bond, filling the air with stories and knowledge from both worlds. As the blizzard continued to blanket the landscape, they began to peel away the layers that separated them. In the mornings, Lokesh would wake first, stoking the fire, while Sita remained enveloped in her layers of insulation. The sight of her, still and serene, began to awaken an unexpected tenderness in his heart. Slowly, he introduced her to the concept of human cuisine. One day, he managed to salvage scraps from his emergency rations, dried fruit and energy bars, and offered them to her. "It's not much, but it's better than nothing," he said, trying to keep the mood light. Sita eyed the offerings with suspicion. "What am I supposed to do with this? Squishy mass?" "Try it," he urged playfully. "It's surprisingly enjoyable once you get used to it. Think of it as a culinary adventure." After some hesitation, she took a cautious bite, her face contorting with skepticism. "It has a texture of goo and a flavor of what is this? Unidentifiable?" "It's called a protein bar," he chuckled. "I can assure you, it's designed to keep you alive. If you think our meals are strange, you should see how we cook on Earth." As the tension shifted, Sita began to open up, intrigued by Lokesh's simple joys. In return, she shared fragments of her own culture. She spoke of her race, the Arcanites, whose mastery of technology allowed them to leap beyond the stars. "We lived in harmony with nature, using advanced tools to protect rather than destroy." "Sounds impressive," Lokesh remarked, genuinely fascinated. "What happened to bring you here?" "It's a long story," she said, a shadow passing through her eyes. "One marked by lost friendships and my own choices." Over time, they established a daily ritual, building a routine as reliable as the sun was back on Earth, a rhythm that brought them closer, with Sita teaching Lokesh about the stars and their constellations. They spent nights wrapped in blankets, gazing up at the shimmering sky full of celestial bodies, speaking of dreams deferred and aspirations lost. "You see that star? It's a guiding light," Sita pointed out, her voice steady. "In my culture, we believe it is a sign of hope, a reminder of who we were and who we can still become." "Hope," he echoed, allowing the concept to sink in. "It's something we all need, regardless of where we come from. I thought I came here to explore, but maybe it was to learn." Through their exchanges, a bond flourished, raw and earnest, tinged with vulnerability. With each shared moment, the boundaries of their existences began to blur, knitting together an unexpected tapestry of connection. Yet, despite the burgeoning friendship, Sita's heart warred against her instincts. Her past choices loomed heavily, a persistent reminder of the cultural divide that still separated them. She found herself drawn to Lokesh, yet unsure how much of herself she could reveal without losing her independence. One fateful night, embers glowed brighter as the storm outside howled with renewed fury. They were confined within the cave, wrapped in the warmth of their makeshift home. Sita rested her head against the stone wall, staring into the fire. The heavy stillness hung in the air, tension palpable, electrifying. "Do you ever wonder about love?" Lokesh asked softly, breaking the silence, his gaze locked on the flames. Sita turned her head slightly, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. "Love," she repeated, incredulity wrapping around her heart like an old wound. "Yeah," Lokesh mused, seemingly lost in thought. "The connection between people. It defines so much, doesn't it?" "Love is a luxury," Sita replied, sorrow spilling from her words. "Something meant for those who do not fear loss. But it can also motivate and inspire," he countered. "Look at us. Despite this icy wasteland, we found a way to survive together." "But what if I lose it?" she said sharply, eyes flaring with emotion. "What if this moment, this fragile connection, is taken away? It is easier to remain distant than to risk being hurt." "Maybe," Lokesh said, his voice calm. "But staying distant only brings isolation. Life is too short to deny feelings, Sita. Embrace what we have while we're here." Silence enveloped them, and she could feel a storm brewing within her, battling fear and an unfamiliar yearning. "Tell me more about love on Earth," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, glancing at him. "What is it like for you?" Lokesh smiled, a soft light in his eyes, and for the first time, vulnerability transformed his features. "It's messy and complicated and beautiful, all at once. It's about connection and friendship, the balance of trust and intimacy. It can be the most exhilarating feeling, but also the most terrifying." As he spoke, Sita felt something stir deep within her, a mixture of hope and fear. How could someone so different understand her struggles? Summoning courage, she asked, "Have you loved?" "Yes, once," he replied, a shadow crossing his expression. "It didn't end well, but I learned. Love taught me resilience, and in its absence, I found strength." A heavy pause followed as Sita processed his words. What would it mean to embrace love, knowing the risks? "Tell me about that person," she pressed, drawn by the need to understand. "She was brilliant, adventurous like you," Lokesh said, his voice warm. "But I was naive, enchanted by the idea of love, without realizing it would come with consequences. I lost my way, thinking I could shape love instead of letting it unfold." Sita listened, and her heart ached for him, but within her, a small light flickered. It was a risk, knowing that if Lokesh could open up about his pain, perhaps she too could confront her past. "Maybe we aren't so different after all," she said softly, a glimmer of warmth blossoming in her chest. "Maybe not," he replied, leaning closer, their gazes locked. She could feel the tension shifting, but fear still lurked. What if she let him in only to be hurt again? But the warmth of connection began to override her fears, and within the confines of their cave sanctuary, passion simmered unspoken, akin to the fire before them. As they navigated this fragile territory, Sita began to realize that perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't as alone as she thought. The storm continued its assault outside, a swirling mass of snow and darkness, while inside the cave, a different storm brewed, a tempest of budding emotions and unspoken desires. As the days wore on, the connection between Sita and Lokesh deepened, each moment spent together bringing them closer to the precipice of something transformative. Sita was both a warrior and a guardian, navigating her heart's yearning while still wielding the scars of her past. Though Lokesh presented a gentle strength, a quiet resolve that drew her in, she struggled to reconcile her growing feelings with the fear of vulnerability that had been ingrained in her since her exile. One night, as the wind howled outside with renewed fury, the temperature within the cave plummeted, and the fire crackled feebly against the icy grip of the storm. Sita wrapped her arms around herself, the chill piercing through her layers. "Do you think it will ever end?" she murmured, her voice tinged with a hint of desperation as she stared into the dwindling flames. Lokesh, seated across from her, leaned closer to the fire, his blue eyes reflecting concern. "It has to," he replied softly. "Every storm eventually passes." He reached out a hand, offering warmth, but Sita hesitated, feeling the weight of her past clawing at her. She wanted to take his hand, to connect with him in a way that transcended words, but fear kept her anchored in her worries. "Why do you care?" she asked, the tremor in her voice betraying the vulnerability she tried to shield. "You barely know me." "Maybe that's why," he replied earnestly. "In this vast emptiness, I'm drawn to you. You have strength, courage, qualities that inspire me. You've been through so much, yet you're still fighting." Sita held his gaze, searching for any sign of deceit, but finding none. With each passing moment, her heart pounded, erratic and chaotic, a battle between the desire to pull away and the longing to reach out. "Do you ever feel trapped?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, as if the very world around you is suffocating any hope of what could be. "Every explorer feels that at times," he replied, his expression growing serious. "But the key is to break free, find a way to redefine your limits, those which hold you back." Sita felt the resonance of his words settle in her heart, a truth that ignited a flicker of hope. Perhaps she could break free of her past and embrace this moment. Perhaps Lokesh could be the connection she so desperately needed. "Maybe I don't have to fight alone anymore," she admitted softly, moving closer, the distance between them narrowing, an unspoken understanding blossoming. "Exactly," Lokesh said, his voice filled with encouragement. "We can face this together." In that fragile moment, Sita found herself drawn to him, an echo of something deeper than mere survival. She lingered before him, her heart racing, the warmth of the fire becoming overshadowed by another heat, one that enveloped her very core. But just as she felt herself leaning into that warmth, a sudden crash outside jolted them both from their shared moment. The roar of the wind morphed into a new sound, a growl, low and threatening. What was that? Sita's voice sharpened as instincts kicked in, her earlier vulnerability vanishing in the face of impending danger. "Stay here," Lokesh commanded, rising to his feet as the growl echoed again, more aggressive, more immediate. He knew they had to assess the threat looming outside, but he despised leaving Sita vulnerable in his absence. Peeking outside, he caught sight of a shadow moving near the cave's entrance. Unfamiliar and monstrous, the creature's form was draped in fur, large and menacing, and its glowing eyes pierced the darkness. It wasn't merely an animal, it was a predator, razor-sharp teeth gleaming even in the dim light. "Sita, we have company," he warned as he stepped back into the cave, urgency rising in his tone. "We need to prepare." "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping within. "A beast, large and predatory. We need to find a way to defend ourselves." Lokesh rummaged through his supplies, searching for anything that could act as a weapon. He found a rock, heavy enough to wield, and brandished it before her. "Are you serious?" Sita exclaimed, determination flaring as she grabbed her makeshift metal shard, ever the warrior. "That thing can tear us apart." "We have to work together, Sita. We can't let it in." They positioned themselves near the cave entrance, hearts racing, gazes locked on the darkened threshold. The creature loomed outside, letting out a low growl that reverberated through the walls, shaking their resolve. "On my count, we must scare it off," Lokesh instructed, his voice low, barely above a whisper. 1, 2. As he drew in a breath, the creature lunged forward, revealing itself in full. Sita's instincts kicked in. She shouted loudly, brandishing her weapon, while Lokesh swung his rock with all the force he could muster. The beast hesitated for a split second, surprised by their audacity. In that moment of uncertainty, Sita and Lokesh pressed their advantage, yelling and swinging their makeshift weapons, determination fueling their strength. With a fierce roar, the creature retreated, retreating into the storm, but not without leaving behind an echo of danger, a warning they dared not ignore. As the blizzard surged outside, their hearts raced with adrenaline, the realization of what they had just faced settling in. They had fought together, their lives intertwined in that moment of danger, and emerged intact. Breathless, Sita turned to Lokesh, a mix of relief and exhilaration flowing between them. "We did it," she exclaimed, a grin breaking through the tension as they sank back into the cave, the weight of their shared victory hanging in the air. "Yes, we did," Lokesh replied, a smile radiating warmth that echoed the fire's glow. "We're stronger together." And in that moment, Sita understood. Perhaps it was time to embrace love, connection, the thing she had feared for too long. As the storm howled on, they sat side by side, their barriers cracked wider, emotions weaved deeper with every heartbeat. Suddenly, the distance between them felt infinitesimal. Fear and desire melded effortlessly, and as the fire crackled beside them, they discovered a new warmth, one that spoke of courage, companionship, and the possibility of love. The storm outside continued to howl, a relentless reminder of the world beyond the protection of their cave. Inside, however, a different kind of tempest swirled. The adrenaline rush from their encounter with the creature lingered in the air, igniting something primal that pulsed between Sita and Lokesh. As they caught their breath, reality shifted away from mere survival. The connection they had forged through shared trials morphed into a burgeoning desire that could no longer be ignored. For the first time, Sita fully recognized the depth of her feelings for Lokesh. He was not just a companion. He was a kindred spirit, a partner who understood her struggles and shared her hopes. "Lokesh," she said, her voice a whisper, a thread woven with vulnerability and longing. "About what we faced outside, I realized something." "What's that?" he asked, his gaze intense, a flicker of understanding dancing in his eyes. "This bond we share, it's more than survival. I feel something deeper, something that pulls me towards you." Sita's heart raced, each word a leap of faith. "I want to connect with you in every way." The air between them thickened as emotions swirled around them, electrifying the atmosphere. Lokesh's expression transformed from surprise to realization, a sense of purpose igniting behind his gaze. "I feel it too," he admitted, taking a step closer. This connection, it's powerful. I've never felt anything like it before. As if guided by instinct, they inched closer, the space between them dissolving until their breaths mingled in the warm air. Sita could see the flicker of need in his eyes, a shared understanding that had been building, reaching its tipping point. "Let's not fight it," she said, her voice steady yet filled with warmth. "Here now. With you, I want to experience all that we can become." Lokesh closed the distance, capturing her face gently in his hands. "Sita, I've never felt so alive as I do with you. I want you to know how deeply I cherish this connection." In that instant, the barriers that had held them captive for too long shattered beneath the weight of their emotions. Sita felt a surge of energy, bold and overwhelming, as she surrendered to the moment. She reached for him, pulling Lokesh closer, her heart pounding in rhythm with a pulse of desire. "Then mate with me," she breathed, a wildness sparking in her eyes, her vulnerability morphing into a raw need. "Let us unite in this moment. Let us claim what we feel." With a shared understanding, they embraced each other, a mixture of nervous energy and fervent passion. The fire crackled beside them, casting shadows upon the walls of the cave as they came together in a dance that transcended words. Each touch, each kiss, was a promise of connection, a fusion of their hearts and souls. Lokesh's hands roamed over Sita's body, every curve, every line, exploring the beauty of her alien form. Sita responded, her own fingers tracing the strong contours of his physique, the warmth radiating from him igniting her senses. "Together," he murmured, the words barely escaping his lips, filled with a mixture of tenderness and urgency. "Yes, together," she affirmed, surrendering completely to the moment, her instincts awakening to the primal call of mating. As they intertwined, their bodies moving in harmony, it felt as if the universe shifted. In that sacred space of intimacy, they combined not only their physical beings, but also their lives, histories, and vulnerabilities. They embraced their desire, nurtured their connection, and found a refuge in each other's arms, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of the world. With each heartbeat, they solidified a bond that was both new and ancient, a mating that transcended the physical aspects, weaving an unbroken tapestry of trust and love. They became intertwined in every sense, their energies merging, pulsing with the rhythm of the fire and the storm outside as they celebrated their union. As the intensity of their experience reached its peak, the cave resonated with the echoes of their shared connection, a testament to their journey from fear to acceptance, from isolation to love. They were no longer two beings separated by different worlds. They had become one, crafting their futures together from the ashes of their pasts. As the storm outside began to wane, the winds receded their howl, revealing a stillness that hung in the air, a stark contrast to the tempest they had just endured together. Sita and Lokesh lay entwined, their bodies warm against the chill of the cave, hearts beating in unison as they savored the aftermath of their shared intimacy. In the quiet that followed, contentment settled like a soft blanket around them. "Do you think the storm is finally over?" Sita asked, her voice a gentle murmur as she rested her head against Lokesh's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "It's hard to tell," he replied, a smile playing on his lips as he brushed a stray hair from her face. "But if it is, we'll face whatever comes next together." The weight of their experiences shifted, a transformation from mere survival to the power of partnership. The bond they had forged through pain and fear had blossomed into something beautiful, resonating with a newfound strength. They had turned their solitude into companionship, their union a testament to overcoming adversity. As the last remnants of the storm faded away, Sita felt hope surge within her, a hope for a future that was no longer marked by her past struggles. With Lokesh by her side, she could envision a life filled with warmth and connection, free from the shadows of isolation. Hand in hand, they stepped outside the cave, greeted by a world transformed, a landscape blanketed in fresh snow that sparkled like diamonds under the light of a pale sun. The chill in the air was a whisper now, a reminder of their resilience. Together, they ventured forward into the unknown, ready to carve a path not just for survival, but for a shared future, a life shaped by love, understanding, and the promise of new adventures beyond the icy horizon.